Oh, bright star of disaster, I have been lit by Franny Choi. I have come and come here 1,000 times, gone by many names. Trust, I'm no god. Only woodworm, only termite burrowing like a light in the flesh. I'm no insect, only an ache on loop in the window. Be honest, the wounds have been bearable thus far. Who isn't bruised around the edges? Peaches poured in the truck bed, receipts faded to white? I have ever only wanted to bite down hard on whatever was offered to my hothouse mouth. And here I am, licking corners like a nervous cat, squirming in the hallway outside the bathroom. I pick up the accent of whoever I'm speaking to. Nobody wants to fuck a sponge. Nobody wants to crush on a ghost. Oh sure, we all do it anyway. Flickering screens, falsy batting, a story of a girl or a country or a clean house, where everyone knows her place. My face is a game of telephone gone sour or south. Fleshy marionette in the window, dancing her awful crooked dance. And isn't that what you paid for? Isn't that what you came to see? A god on loop, failing.
Excerpt from Drone by Harry Kunzru. All the land is in drought. A satellite view shows the mine eaten out of the bend in the dry river, like a cancer on its jaw. The miners take the mud for washing. They must pay for this. Water is precious, almost as precious as the particles washed out of the mud. The men who run the washers are foreigners. They wear hazmat suits and expensive ventilators. They don't want to share the air of this place, not if they can help it. Pity the miner who disagrees about way or accuses one of the washers of using too coarse a mesh. They have their niche in this ecology and guard it with the viciousness of small men who know that they are only a step above the mud. It is waiting for them, the mud, waiting to drag them down. So their suits are ostentatiously white. They flash fancy guns and chakras. There is no law here to stop them killing. In a place such as this, the only protection available to small men is the ability to inspire fear. The miners sprawl in the dust, waiting for their loads to be called. When the numbers are processed, the mud goes through the machine. They stand by the tank with their tins, praying to the various gods. Santa Muerte, Lakshmi Devi, let it be pure, let it be heavy. The atmosphere is tense. The miners look like beggars, children at an orphanage. Everyone knows the washers are cheating them. Everyone knows that when the waste mud is re-washed, late at night, it will turn out not to be waste at all.
The mud is rich in a rare earth, which yields a metal necessary to make certain electrical components. The metal is not decorative. It is dull and gray. It has no iconography, no trail of songs and stories. Yet upon it such a huge structure has been built, such a pyramid of machines and money that is worth more than gold or platinum. There is no alternative. This hole in the dry land is one of the few sources left. The metal is the only thing here the great powers care about. No one wants to administer the territory or organize the people. The last state of which this land formed part still exists, but only on paper. In reality, this is what international law terms a special economic zone. When the mud has been washed, the miners take their little tins of precious dust to the dealers, who sit behind their perimeters some way from the mine workings. The miners must negotiate to cross. They must participate in network identification and trust protocol to demonstrate that they are not a threat. The perimeters are not physical, though some have visual markers. They are informed by drones and chakras. The air is thick with them. After a storm, the ground is crunchy underfoot with little electronic corpses. The dealers have many layers of protection. Some have crawls, which disarms their clients and hold them in place to be scanned and swapped. There are cages and holding tanks. There are intelligent weapons set to operate with full autonomy. This poses no legal problem. All laws have been suspended here, all norms. At every scale, a special economic zone is in a state of continual undeclared war, the war of each against each.
The dealers, mostly women, are from the capital. They are fat and glossy, eating from hygienically sealed packages, breathing the controlled atmosphere of their pots. The miners hand over the tin through an airlock. No physical contact ever takes place. Some of the dealers work for Indians, others for the Chinese. Most are linked to the militias, to the CAAC or the AFLC or the CPPA or the CPPAM or CPPAML or any of the other dozen factions that depend on mining revenue to continue their obscure insurgencies. Some militias own washers. The largest have airstrips. The water tankers that serve the mine are battered, limping things on their third or fourth owner. 30 years ago, they were making runs across the American desert states. 15 years ago, they were in Central Asia. Now, they are here. They pay to land. It's worth the risk. The price of water is 50 times what it is on the coast, near the desalination plants. Only the toughest pilots stay the night. Most are turning around their birds before they've even drained their tanks. To get in and out, they must use contaminated airspace, low and vulnerable. The higher air is reserved for the great powers, and they have satellite defenses. So the tanker pilots pull back their sticks and judder upwards, squinting at the instrumentation in case some obstacle appears ahead. On the ground, it is worse. Teeming, swarming, the camp is saturated with replicators. Every system at every scale, from the miners' ramshackle living pods to the exotic rival strains proliferating in their blood, is in flux. Repair swarms, security swarms, root medical processes. The encampment street plan, its architecture, the very bodies of its inhabitants, all are mutating at a pace that is frequently visible even to the unaugmented eye. When the mineral rush started about 5 years ago, after this area fell out of the control of the last group that could style itself a government, miners laid out a street grid.
And now the parts of the camp that still possesses streets have melted into a maze of winding, crooked alleys, like those of medieval cities. The areas that don't have streets, where swarming and replication have intensified to catastrophic levels, resemble anthills, though the force and abstraction of their overlays makes observation tricky. A mess of sensory fragments, hybrid phenomena, organic and inorganic jumbled up together. The miners have names for these places: hives, eggs, who can tells. In most places where the rule of law holds sway, they are termed mutabilities and suppressed. There are people in some of them. What used to be people. Mutabilities, tunnels, gropes, names for uncertain zones with complex powers of attraction. The camp is full of them. Formations can appear overnight, capturing raw materials and biomass, then disappear just as quickly, overcome by some counter-process, some alternate will-to form. Some of these events are more or less under the control, or at least guidance, of some person or faction. Others appear spontaneous. Opinion in the camp is usually divided about causality, as it's about most things. The only constant is waste. Once the water has been recovered and usable raw materials fed back or scavenged, there are only two outputs of this filthy midden: radiant energy and dust.
Catastrophe is Next to Godliness by Franny Choi. Lord, I confess, I want the clarity of catastrophe, but not the catastrophe. Like everyone else, I want a storm I can dance in. I want an excuse to change my life. The day A died, the sun was brighter than any sun. I answered the phone and a channel opened between my stupid head and heaven, or what was left of it. The blankness stared back, and I made sound after sound with my blood-wet gullet. Oh, unsayable. Oh, tender and divine, unsayable. I knew you then. You lined straight to a planet's calamitious core. You moment, moment, moment. You intimate abyss, I called sister for a good reason. When the bad thing happened, I saw every blade. And every year I find out what they've done to us. I shed another skin. I get closer to open air, true north. Lord, if I say, bless the cold water you throw in my face, does that make me a costume party? Am I greedy for comfort if I ask you not to kill my friends? If I beg you to press your heel against my throat, not enough to ruin me, but just so I can almost see your face.
Excerpt from Midnight Rubber by Nella Hopkinson. They headed briskly down the corridor. Daddy, where are we going? To freedom, child. We going where nobody could tell we what to do. Maka say he will come after, and what the two of we could do in that world with all we know. You want to come with me, right? Yes, Daddy. She didn't understand, but she wasn't going to make him leave her again. Mommy could come here with you too? Probably later, Dudu. Hurry now. Antonio took them into courtroom A. Inside it was row after row of uncomfortable-looking seats. They all faced a big chair with a desk. There were 2 other chairs on either side of the desk. This is where the judge does sit, Antonio said, hustling them past the big chair. When he passed sentence, the people to deport does go through here. Behind the judge's seat was a door marked to shift tower, deportees and detention officers only beyond this door. They went through. Daddy, let me go home, no? Can't do, sweetness. Quashy that. Me try to go home and then will pop me. Maka saving my ass, darling. Can't get out, but I can get through. They were in a long, dark cement corridor. Their footsteps rang on the concrete floor like the dead gong in Cockpit County. Daddy, what deportee mean? When people do bad things, we just send them away so they can't hurt nobody else. Killers, rapists, people we don't know what to do with, and like so. And is which part knew halfway 3 years? Antonio gave a small, tight laugh. Where, that to do it right there. He explained about the dimensional shift, how there were more Toussaints than they could count, existing simultaneously, but each one a little bit different. We're going to a next Toussaint, one we can't come back from again, nobody know how. It's going to be hard to live, no comforts, but I think we can survive. It's a big chance I'm taking for you, Dudu. All Tantan heard was, can't come back. She imagined deportees walking down the same corridor, hearing their footsteps echoing in this world for the last time, and knowing they would never see home again.
They reached a room marked Shift Tower. They went inside. The room was tall and narrow, and the ceiling was so high that it disappeared in the shadows above. In the middle of the room was a tall column with 4 doors all around it. That is how we're going, Antonio said. That is the halfway tree. You see the 4 pots? He pointed to the doors. We go get inside that one there. Just like peas in a pod, right? He tickled her to make her laugh, but it didn't work this time. We take we in and we point at new halfway tree and fling we there like boulder stones from a slingshot. Tears started to run down Tantan's face. She had promised Daddy to be good, but she was scared. Don't frighten, sweetheart. It's going to be nice, right? His voice shook. He picked her up, took her over to one of the pots, stepped inside. This is it, Tantan. Pray that it's going to work. Daddy activated the box again. Came another burst of song. The door to the pot slid soundlessly closed. It was bare inside, just one dim light in the ceiling. Antonia had barely set Tantan down when a wave of nausea swept through her. Daddy! Antonio sat down hard beside her. Tantan felt like a big hand was pressing her down onto the floor of the pot, its fingers stirring up her insides. My ears block up, she complained. Hold your nose and blow hard, Antonio said. His voice was trembly. Tantan looked at him. His face was gray with fear. He looked like he wanted to vomit. Her daddy wasn't supposed to fray nothing. The first shift wave hit them. For Tantan, it was as though her belly was turning inside out, like wearing all her insides on the outside. The air smelled wrong. She clutched Antonia's hand. A curtain of fog was passing through the pod, rearranging sight. Sound. Daddy's hand felt wrong. Too many fingers, too many joints. Antonio coughed nervously. The wave passed through them and went. Daddy's hand felt all right again. We're climbing into the tree for true, he said.
And the next veil swept through them, slow like molasses. Tantan felt as though her tailbone could elongate into a tail, long and bald like a manicure rat's. Her cries of distress came out like hyena giggles. The telltale switched. She could feel how unfamiliar muscles would move, the unfamiliar limp. The thing standing beside her looked more like a man-sized mongoose than her father. He smelled like food, but food she wasn't supposed to eat. Family. Tantan sobbed and tried to rub her tail tightly around herself. But the veil was gone. She had only thought she was a big manicure. Antonio was a man again. He made a little noise in his throat like a whimper. He skinned up his teeth at her in one big false grin. That wasn't so bad, huh, Dudu? His voice was high. We going to a good place. But under his breath, he started to sing. Captain, Captain, put me ashore. I don't want to go anymore. It'na make winna drowed me. It'na make winna bust me belly. It'na makes too much for me. That one is an old sailor song, he mumbled, almost as though he wasn't talking to Tantan, but just to hear his own voice. Itanami was the river rapids. People and ships would go through it, like we going through dimension veils. Itanami break up plenty vessel, but them long ago people never see power like this halfway tree. They were trapped in a confining space, being taken away from home, like the long time ago Africans. Tantan nightmare had come to life. Daddy, she said to the ball, I don't like this. I want to stop. Let me go up. I can't do that, sweetheart. Now I activate it. I can't control it from inside. You understand? This is the halfway tree. This is exile. When you go through the shift, we is new people, not Mereshevits no more. We never going to belong in Tucson again. Click came to echo into Tantan's ear. Antonio got the listening look that let her know Eshu was talking to him too. Young mistress, is what going on? It was her Eshu, the one from their house. It's all right, Eshu, Daddy lied. Before Tantan could say anything, she ate some pepper mango, is all. It's making she a little bit sick. He chuckled weakly. She could never stand pepper, we. Esche was responding, but his voice was crackly. She couldn't understand him. Antonio was shaking his head like a dog with fleas in its ear. "We're losing the connection to the web," he muttered. "Oh God, like this is it,
Another veil. The light inside the pot turned pink. The air got hot. Very faintly, both her issue and the building issue said together, "Hold on, young mister, shift to boarding." "No," shouted Antonio. Tantan felt a little pop inside her ears. She felt dizzy. "Abort fail," whispered Eshu. There was an itch at the back of her throat. Her ears popped painfully once, twice. There was a ringing in them. Antonio moaned in fear. He took Tantan in his arms and held her close. "Whatever happened, you's my little girl, you hear? My doo-doo darling, coming just like Lone when she was a sweet little thing. Don't care where we go, you is always my little Lone." Antonio buried his head against Tantan's shoulder, a heavy weight. Another veil washed over them. It was hot, fire hot. The ringing in Tantan's ears was so loud, it was pain. She cried. The tears running down her face felt too cold, like ice water. They were leaving Maryshaw's paradise, shifting to a new world, her and her daddy. Little by little, the ringing and itching went away. The pot door clicked open. Antonio picked Tantan up and reached for the hatch, but this hand went right through it. The image of the pot faded away, leaving the two of them standing in the bush. Tantan looked at Antonio to see if he changed plenty now that he was no longer a Meerschwit. He was crouching down beside her. His face was the same and his body, but in his eyes was a look like the fear in Quashi's eyes when he had felt Antonio's machete at her neck. Is so a man face does day after he looked at her own death, and he could never be the same again. Tantan felt she must have changed too.
Antonio stroked Tantan's cheek and looked deep into her eyes. "You is all that leave to me now. You dear to me." Tantan didn't like the way Antonio was talking. She tried to act normal, to make everything be normal again. Where the pot gone, Daddy?" But the crazy look wouldn't leave her daddy's eyes. "It was never there, Tantan. It just pushed me here from Toussaint." Antonio ran his hands over his body. Safe. He looked around. Let me take a look at now new home, all right? This bush. All around them, it had some big knotted up tree stem with twisted up roots digging into the ground like old man fingers. The air was too cold and it had a funny smell, like old bones. The light coming through the trees was red, not yellow. Even the tree stem looked wrong. The bark was more purple than brown. Some beast was making noise in one of the trees over her head, a grunting noise like Quashi made when Antonio hit him yesterday. This wasn't her home. This ugly place couldn't be anybody's home. "Where are we going to live, Daddy? What are we going to eat? Where are the people?" "I ain't no, Dudu. We're going to have to fend for ourselves." Antonio shrugged his shoulders. No more Nursey with her Nancy stories. No more Lone and her pretty dresses them. No more Eshu. Daddy gone stupidity, like he ain't know the answer to nothing anymore. She and Antonio didn't look no different, but Tantan could feel the change the shift tower had made inside her, feel her heart begin to harden against her daddy, who couldn't tell her where they were, who couldn't make everything all right again. She felt she didn't know him anymore. He was right. Once you climbed a halfway tree, everything changed up.
Legacy by Joshua Stiles.
What will humans look like in 100,000 years?
Our deep descendants will be nothing like us. Think, nothing like us. They won't have our eyes, or nose, or hair, or wisdom, teeth, our love of books, our languishing languages, DNA spelled the same way. Not our thin, frail skin, hot temper, tendency to sneeze in sunshine. But they'll have our sun, the same sun, under which nothing and everything changes. Hearts that beat with our old blood, swarming with tiny bots made by us, gifted to the future. And when they bleed, it won't mean the end. For they will live a long, long time, maybe forever. Turning over these symbols, sifting distant echoes of their mothers, fathers, creators. They'll be so beautiful, like any children, such familiar strangers.